My parallaxer to talk to you with the help of George Harrison. Instead of singing a song, because apparently that gets me in trouble if I sing someone else's intellectual property. Instead, I'm going to try something different and tell you a little story pertaining to one of the artist's song. I was today at work. I was listening to these 3 cassettes I have from George Harrison: "All Things Must Pass," "Best of Dark Horse," and "Cloud 9," 1987. The song "Got My Mind Set on You" kind of brings back childhood memories when I was in grade school, because it might have been the first time that I came across a song that all the kids at the bus stop and that rode the bus to and from school that I rode with, going to grade school, everybody loved the song. That's how popular that song was at the time. Came out in '87, so yeah. George Harrison, Cloud 9, 1987. Got My Mind Set on You. That song, very, very popular. Kind of a winner for the guy. Kind of put him back on the map too after almost a decade. But so all the kids at the school at the bus stop in '87, they loved it, and whenever it come on the radio, the driver would turn it up. And then it got me thinking. I actually had a lot of experiences growing up on a school bus that I would wager most kids in the last 10, 20 years, even 30 years, probably never got to really experience. I remember I was just a child, but I was just eavesdropping on the cooler, older kids talking to the bus driver one day, making plans for the last day of school. I didn't understand 100%. Probably the only words I understood, being a stupid child at the time, was water balloon. That was probably the only word. Beyond that, I didn't really understand what else was going on. But when I think back to that memory, I can kind of piece together, fill in the blanks, kind of. So basically, these older kids made plans with the bus driver. The last day of school, we were going to have a water balloon fight on the bus. So when I think back to this event now, I'm thinking that the bus driver probably had another job lined up, and this was going to be his final ride as a bus driver. So basically, it was, like I said, I didn't understand the conversation back then. I was just a child, but when I look back now, having a more adult mind, I can fill in the blanks. Sorry about the noise. It's raining again. But I could fill in the blank. Basically, the bus driver told these older kids, if you can smuggle water balloons onto the bus after a school day, on the ride home, when we're away from the school and on the outskirts, this is the Midwest, you could have at it. Have a water balloon fight. So that's exactly what happened. We all partook. It didn't. I just remember vaguely. I just like older kids with backpacks, just packed with water balloons. We had a blast, though. I'm sure there was a bump here and a bruise there, but back then, this was before pansies kind of took over pansies hadn't taken over the world yet. Like George kind of said, we had a little bit of fun. We were kids and we had a little bit of fun. Could you imagine though being the guy when he took the bus back to wherever he took the guys that have to inspect the bus? So anyways, so that's my story with that. But I also wanted to talk. I got some local mail from the city council asking to sign a petition and maybe make a donation towards for the National Police Association. apparently there is a system. Um, it says, well, 40 years ago, law enforcement experts saw this. Have you ever noticed how well? I'll just read it. Have you ever noticed how well-maintained neighborhoods rarely have problems with crime, while disorderly neighborhoods with trash on the street, graffiti paintings painted on the buildings usually have the worst crime? Well, 40 years ago, law enforcement experts saw the same thing and found out when you clean up the trash in a bad neighborhood, crime like robbery and even murder went down. So they came up with a system called the quality of life policing, also known as the broken window policy, where police go into bad neighborhoods and issue citations for littering, vandalism, loitering, and other quality of life offenses. And I thought, this makes sense. This really makes sense. Yeah, you got to have a. Yeah, so I will definitely sign the petition for this. But it's kind of nice getting local stuff like this. So I will sign the petition. I might donate, but I kind of want to save the bulk of my donating for Trump's reelection. Maybe I would feel differently if it wasn't for the Mar-a-Lago raid or the constant and persistent and continuing persecution of Trump. But I do support something like this, and it sounds like it'd be something that a good cop, good police officers can do. That can just go to work every day and do their job. What is a police officer's job? Oh, I think I have a reason to take RoboCop off the shelf. All right, so RoboCop's going to help us out. Robo, what exactly is a police officer's job?
Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law.
Thank you. I bought this thing, God, almost 20 years ago with birthday money I got from an aunt. And I've never changed the batteries on it. It just sat on the shelf. But it's always been in a cool, dry place. I guess that's why it still works. All right, I don't want this video to be too long. I just want to elaborate a little bit more on some of the video shorts I made recently. But yeah, George Carlin. George Carlin. I made the video was wrong about this. Maybe. But, yeah, in his last interview when he's talking about how nobody cares about borders anymore. It's all about $1 and a toy. Everybody wants a cell phone that'll rub their, as my mother would say, perpendiculars and make pancakes for them. But nobody wants to rock the boat. One day, if we lasted long enough, I think we would be one world government, one currency. I think that would happen. That's what George says. But, no, I think, like I said, I think more and more people are waking up with the importance of a secure border for a successful country, for the legal citizens of that country, like I said in the video. But, also in that interview with George Carlin, he goes on to say, "Oh, they say you scratch a cynic, you'll find a broken-hearted, whatever, idealist." And I would admit there is a little flicker of a flame here, but I would like to see it all change. And then he goes on, it just seems like the pile of shit is too big. It's just too much to do. Well, yeah, that's true, George. There is a lot to do. We'll see what happens in November. Either way, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. Surviving. And I just briefly wanted to elaborate just a tiny little bit on that other video I made. It's not about, quote, the right way to speak to you. Yeah. These people, they don't own language. I talk the way I talk, and I'm free to talk the way I talk. I don't have to sit there and read directions before I can talk to you. Ridiculous. I gotta sit there and waste my mental energy learning the correct way to talk to you? I don't think so. Like I said in that video short, unless you cured cancer, or have ended wars all over the world. I don't have to concern myself with the correct way to talk to you. And the only other thing I wanted to mention before I call it a day with this is I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on my becoming ambidextrous, capable of writing with both my left and right hand. I'm discovering, as I'm doing it more and more, my figure eights and even my zeros were still a bit cockeyed when I did it with my left hand, when I write with my left hand. But I'm finding that when I write a figure, for example, when I write a figure eight with my right hand, like as I've done for years, I do it counterclockwise. Basically starting counterclockwise. What I'm finding is it feels more natural. It feels more natural when I write with my left hand to draw a figure eight clockwise. I haven't seen any personally, but somebody did tell me that there are videos out there of people writing in cursive with both their left and right hand, and it's like a mirror image. It's like that makes sense to me now because it feels more natural when I'm writing numbers and stuff with my left hand. It feels more natural if I go clockwise versus counterclockwise with my right hand. It's the darndest thing. I'm not saying I'm, to that level yet where I can do that, but I'm getting there. All right. I gotta relax. I'm gonna watch an episode of South Park. A friend of mine, he was always a big fan of that show, and these days, it's getting harder and harder and harder to find things that make you laugh. And at least, this is one show that I can depend on at least a few good laughs in that, 20, 25 minutes, whatever. Mike Paralak, thank you for your time. Incidentally, the only interesting thing that the 2014 RoboCop says is, if I had a pulse, it would be racing. That's probably the most interesting thing that one says.